And if you don't lean in and do something, I think we're all made to connect, and God's given you unique gifts and talents that, man, if you're not using them, you're going to have that void, and you're going to wonder what it is. And it's like, go take action. Like you will find your why and your purpose by taking more action, not sitting on your couch and going, oh, I hope it comes to me today. It's not. Get out there.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
And salutations of Audley Stevenson, and welcome back to another edition of the most audacious podcast the internet has to offer. This is the Audacious Living Podcast. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us on our journey as we continue our ongoing goal of helping you live your best audacious life ever. As always, I want to encourage you to connect with us through our social media channels. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram under the handle The Audacious Pod. And then if you head over to Facebook and you search the Audacious Living Podcast in the search engine, you can find us there as well. And if you happen to be watching this episode on YouTube, then you know if you tap the notification bell down below, you can instantly subscribe to our channel and you get notifications every time we got brand new content. So we make it super simple and super easy to stay connected, like, follow, subscribe, share, and do all we can to keep this audacious conversation going. You know, speaking of audacious conversations, it's always cool to connect with like-minded individuals and exchange thoughts and ideas, and that's exactly what took place on this edition of the podcast. You see, I was joined by Brian Covey, who, much like myself, he's a podcaster and a very successful one, I might add, who connects with amazing people in his network, and they share wonderful stories of overcoming adversity and setbacks, and how they turn those situations into wins. And that's so key. There's a common theme and thread throughout so many of them in their stories. And so Brian does a good job of harvesting these lessons and sharing them. His podcast actually led to his book, Conversations with Covey, which highlights some of his favorite guests over the course of his podcasting journey. And it's packed full of inspiration and hope. But more importantly, they're actionable steps that can help any one of us to win in life, no matter what we're at or what stage is going on in our lives. You know, there are things that we can all take away. So it was really, really great to connect with Brian. Again, it was a wonderful conversation. Again, the whole, when like-minded people come together and they're passionate about what they do, it's just a wonderful, wonderful time that we had. And so I'm going to give you an opportunity to hear from Brian Covey in just a few. Here he is, and here's my conversation with him. Take care. If that's okay with you, I just kind of want to get started, man.
Let's jump. That's way better. I suppose, man, the formatted questions to me, I'm always, it creates a little scripting, and it's not as fun as real.
And it's not natural. Like, I'd like to be able to say, "Hey, Brian, what's going on? Did you see the game last night?" Or I don't want to. That's not my, it's not on my list of questions I can't ask you. Right?
Hold on. Let me get back to my questions.
That's right. Anyhow, listen, Brian, I really appreciate you taking the time and being here with me on the Audacious Living Podcast. As I was saying before we got going here, I have an appreciation for the work you do, because we're sort of in a similar space and have similar dialogues and like-minded in that sense. And so I definitely, looking forward to the chat. The area that we're different, though, I will point out a couple areas, but the one area that we're definitely different is I'm a basketball guy and you're a soccer guy. And I would imagine the world of sports, there's a lot that comes from that. But I'd like to, if we could start there, just talk about how your soccer influence is helped or supported the work that you do now.
I'll put it out there. I tried basketball, and once I stopped growing at about 5'9" and 5'10", that's probably not going to work out. And soccer was great, but I did I do attribute, I played AAU basketball and all that, end
Mhm.
up shifting over to soccer, which I think there's some parallels between team sports, whether it's basketball, soccer, baseball, some of these others, where you need to figure out in life how to get along with people. Like this never goes away in life. Like whether it's relationships in your team,
Right.
in your company, or externally, you're trying to get people to do business with you.
Got you.
Reality is, guess what? You're trying to influence and win people over to either like you, trust you, maybe give you a shot at playing in a game
Right.
or business and an opportunity. And I love that because sports, for me, it was a way to establish myself. And I am highly competitive to this day in just about anything. My wife will tell you, my kids will tell you,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what the game is. I hate to lose. I still hate to lose really bad.
Got you. I got you.
And soccer was great because I think there were some foundations that I have carried on, not just in my life, but in my leadership's kind of just style and who I am. And look, the sport is very unforgiving. If you don't put in the work and the effort, you'll know. You won't get picked for the team. You won't get playing time. You won't move up and play collegiately or professionally. At some point, you're going to get enough feedback to where you didn't put in the work. And life is the same. If you don't put in the work, one of those great lessons was you're not going to get the output. You're not going to get the return that you're looking for.
Right.
So I would say that's probably the one that I recognized. The more time I put in, the better I got, the harder I worked. And I always was competitive, that I would get better.
Gotcha.
And then as I got better, it was actually more fun. And one of my mentors, Ed Millett, shared this the other day. And he said, winning is more fun than fun is fun.
Winning more fun than fun. I like that.
Because if you're winning, you're having fun.
That's right.
It's hard to have fun when your team's losing
Gotcha.
or in life. And so I would say that was it. It was a great start, helped me get my education. And from there, transitioned out. But I do attribute a lot of that to the coaches and mentors and my dad and some people that, never gave up, kept coaching me, even I'm sure when I made lots of mistakes.
Yep. No, well, and that's, but you see, the mistakes are part of the process, right? And really, and I'm not telling you something you don't know here, but you learn. That's where the biggest learnings come from. And going back to your point around, putting in the work. My son, he's 15 years old, and this past off season, well, it was a longer off season because of COVID, but that off season, he dedicated himself and said, okay, I want to get better. And watch him. The season just recently started, but watch him coming into it. It's a totally different player, and he's able to see the results because of his own output and input rather. And I think that's a really, really key lesson. As simplified as it is, like, because people go, yeah, of course, it's logical, but it doesn't always happen, right?
Yeah. Well, the other thing I think people discount is, look, we're all more confident when we know we've put in the work. If you're preparing for a speech at school, you're preparing for a test at school, whatever it is, let's just say it's not even sports.
Yep.
The reality is, I know for me, and I know for probably everybody out there, the reality is if you didn't put in the work, and you're coming in, you have doubts in your mind, you're nervous. But if you did put in the work, you feel the other way. And I always say, confidence is something you can only build yourself, right? Like I can't really give my confidence. I can inspire somebody, motivate them, but confidence comes from just doing it. And doing it again and doing it again and doing it again and realizing, okay, I'm getting better. And I think that's something that for, young people, and my oldest is 14 as well. And I talked to her about that as she competes, is you need to be confident. The work you're putting in is not just to build the skills that people will see, but it's to build this muscle up here and to believe, you know what, I have put the training in. I can make that play. I can make that save. I can do this.
Yep.
That to me, that doesn't go away. And confidence is something people recognize, that energy and transference right when you walk in the room.
Yeah. Yeah. I love using sports, and as you talked about with your daughter, I love using sports with my son specifically, because I'll oftentimes remind him of those moments that he wasn't successful. To this day, again, he's 15. I use an example. They were playing little league basketball. Okay, Brian. So it's a little league type basketball. They called it. They do this thing where they bring the rim down really low so the kids can go shoot at the basket, and they line them all up single file, one at a time. And I'll never forget, these like 7 or 8 years old, and he missed the shot. And he came crying to me and grabbed my leg and said he didn't want to do this anymore. And to this day, I remind him about about that experience and what would have happened if I let you quit because you missed that one shot. Where would you be today? And those are sorts of lessons when you talk about what sports can do, right? It motivates you because you can go and you can see your progress, right? I'm big on celebrating wins, right? And so every time you're making a milestone or achievement, you go, yep, check that off. And so that's one of the reasons I love it, man. I love it a lot for that reason.
Yeah, you got to do it. And that's good for you as a parent, because too often, culture has gotten pretty soft on that lately, where it's like, let's console them. And, we had something similar this weekend where our son was our youngest, 6, falling down a few times extra. And I remember I looked at the coach, I was like, push him, tell him to get right back up. He's fine. And also, you know what? Quit falling down, because you fell down. Like, nobody knocked you over.
Right.
You got to tell your kid to get up, don't run out there on the field. I saw a kid this weekend. They ran off the field because they tripped. They actually tripped on themselves.
Okay.
Ran to the sideline. It's like, no, man, let's get back in the game, right? Like, there's a time and a place for that. But I think that is something in culture today. And I applaud you, because look, I mean, imagine all of us had somebody given up on us or said, hey, you know what? That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. You can quit.
Yeah. God, come on.
You'll regret that the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, you can't, and even the example of the kid tripping over his own feet, like, oftentimes do we do that in life, right? We are in our own way, where we're the ones that are kind of being our own impediment for doing whatever we need to do.
Yeah. We look for somebody to console us, to tell us it's okay. And all that. No, it's not okay. Get up, get going, get back in the game. And the only way to win and to compete is get back in the game. Quit looking for people to tell you it's okay. No, like, you're better than that.
Yep. Now you were a pro soccer player, like you play at the pro level as well. So which I think that offers some perspective. We're just talking about kids and at that level, when you go to the pro level, you're seeing a whole other dynamic, aren't you?
Yeah. So what I share with people often is everybody's there is pretty relatively good, right? In the sense of like technical skills, they're fast, they're strong.
Yep.
The difference was what I noticed. It was all in the confidence in their mental game. And it was the preparation and things where I'd watch guys that had been in the league, and you would see their preparation, you would see their mentality, you would see how they came and showed up, and they treated it truly. They moved from it being fun and something they were good at to where, like, this is my profession. This is how I provide for my family. This is what I'm committed to do. In that mental game, it was different to see. And you could see guys break down, to your point, where if they had a bad shot or they made a bad play or something in the game, how quickly did they respond? And what I realized is the best, if they lost the ball in soccer, it was not even a thought. Like, they immediately were chasing to go get the player. They were very coachable, would be the second thing I would share. Is I noticed even when they got to that level, right? They're a pro. They could be better. They could have played longer and more opportunity than even their coach is. But are they willing to accept feedback and coaching from people that are around them? And the third was be a great teammate. Doesn't matter if it's your first year or your 10th year on the team. I watch guys like Tom Brady, and you have to take a step back and go, yes, he's uber talented. Yes, he's got the mental game. But that guy brings people along and brings out the best in them, to where you just can't deny the fact that he makes everyone around him better. So at the pro level, if you can be that kind of player, then you're going to be impactful and influential. And that was something I recognized very quickly, that, wow, some guys have it. And again, some people didn't have it yet. And it was the same in college. But that was, wow, what a lesson. I still take that in my leadership today of, how do you make everybody around you better? I mean, that's something you watch, but that's not easy to do. Quite honestly, that's not something you're born with.
No, it's such a good point, because again, you get to the point where you're not kids anymore, so everyone's at the same height, everyone's at the same skill level, maybe marginally different perhaps, but so it's what are you doing differently to stand out from others, and the ability to bring everyone along for the ride as well. Not just you have great numbers, but everyone has great numbers, or everyone feels part of it. And maybe it isn't in the numbers, but feeling like you're part of it is I think really what we're the big point in this.
Yeah. Knowing what you're great at. We talk about this in our team a lot. And I look back at this now in sports, is there are players that knew their role on the team. They understood it so well. And that's something I will say, like, now building out teams is just knowing what are you great at, and go all in on that, and then build your team around those areas. That the reality is you're probably never going to be the best at it. You could spend years at it, but you've got someone you could go hire today. And then what would that free you up? Like, could you go drive revenue over here? Could you go recruit people over here? Could the process be better? That's stuff in sports. I look back now, That's where the best managers and coaches, you can see, they figure out how to get the most out of their team, but they put people in the right spots that many others would have been like, I would have never seen that option.
Yeah. I think that's a really good lead into the importance of having a real understanding of your own personal talents and gifts, right? Brian, we all have it within us, and for some, we know exactly what it. Some people tell me, "Hey, Audley, you've got a great smile." Well, like that's what I got, right? So it's understanding what we each bring to the table, but then the practical application of that. So there's two different points here, right? Understanding and putting into practice.
Yeah. So this is what I look at this part is most people don't take the time and do the hard work of you have to get to know yourself and be brutally honest. And I've had those kind of breakthroughs in my life, like 2007, 2008 with the market crash.
Yep.
My job gets eliminated and everything's just falling apart. My wife and I, we just had our first 2 kids and we live in a different state than the rest of our family. Right. And you start to realize like, okay, and question yourself, like, what am I good at? Am I going to go do this anymore? Am I going to change careers? What's happening? And then I had a kind of breakthrough experience several years ago too, where somebody I looked up to and a team that I was performing very well in all the metrics came and said, hey man, we don't need you here anymore. We're gonna go a different direction. You're out. And you have to know in those moments, what are you great at? Because the reality is for most of us, we're never going to work at the same company for our entire life, right? Even if we're an entrepreneur, you may build a business, sell the business, go do something else.
Yep.
You got to know what you're great at and do the hard work internally. And that pushed me to really push myself outside of my comfort zone to say, okay, this is what I'm good at. I'm not great at it yet. These are the skills I need to be great at. How do I go acquire those skills and learn those skills and bring mentors to help me? And you're right. Most people don't do the hard work inside and then they don't live that out, because today I could get distracted by all these other things that need to get done. Someone on the team needs to do them.
Yep.
Is that really the highest and best use of my time today? Or should I be over here helping out with areas that I can't delegate out? I mean, that's my baby. That's my responsibility.
Yes.
That's my commitment. And I've got to own that. I think that's hard for most people to get honest and realize I'm not good at those things. I'm gonna go hire somebody. And it's for many of us, it's just a struggle that we have. But look, sooner we are more self-aware, the better. Our team already knows. Guess what? Everybody around you that loves you and cares about you.
Exactly.
You already know.
That's right. Well, and if you selected the right team, it's easier, right? Like if you have the right people in the right positions doing the right things, and it's almost an unsaid thing. Like when a certain task comes up, everyone knows on the team who's going to do it, right?
Yeah, but too often, I fell into this trap early in my career of like, well, I'm the only one that can do this, right? Like, I mean, they can do it better than me, and I've got to do it. And then you realize, like, I need to move out of the way on some things.
That's right.
And create space, right? That's also, I would say that's intentionally how we develop other leaders. And everybody on your team, regardless of their title, they're a leader. Just are you empowering them to lead that day, right? And in that moment, you got to do that.
Yeah, I like that point a lot. Like, what are you doing to bring people along? We just made that point earlier in the sports context, but it very much fits in this as well. Like, in the scope of leadership, how are you impacting people to be better than what they are currently, or maybe how are you to be better than what you are? Like, and there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah, I think that's the sign of a true team. Is somebody could walk in, you can usually tell who the leader is, but you can also tell. A healthy culture is going to have people that are confident and they feel safe enough where they're going to be sharing and connecting up with each other. And our group, we've pushed that as to, hey, when you join, you're going to have a couple people that are mentors for you, that they're already further along the journey here at our team. And they're going to be the ones that can help you, because the reality, there's areas I'm going to help, but there's areas that you're going to relate right away with them, and not being the person that has to have all the answers and figure it out for them. It actually frees you up. And as a byproduct, you're training your team on how to onboard people. So in our group, there's leaders that they lead sales professionals today. Well, those leaders, I know at some point in their career, they're going to want to lead other leaders and scale their team out more. How are they going to learn that? Peer mentor, someone that's just come on board. Help me, help them. That helps our brand, our team. And that's really the secret to some of our exponential growth is I'm willing just to let go of some of that and just say, you're going to be better for them than I'm going to be. And it's training you. So win-win.
And I love the mentorship because oftentimes, unfortunately, leadership is kind of learned on the job, right?
Yeah.
It's like literally on the job training, so, employee number A was really good in this particular area. And because we like them and because we think they could be great leaders, they get placed in that leadership role, which is totally different than what they excelled at before, totally different skill set, all's changed. And we're expecting the same output. And it's not realistic.
No, you got to dig into the details. That's where that surface level leadership, a lot of people stay there. And the reality is you got to go below that a bit. And what's great is that'll actually give you feedback, because I mean, as simple as if you say, okay, I'm going to line you up with 2 peer mentors. One, I'm going to see, do they reach out? Do they step out of their comfort zone and go, I'm going to introduce myself to someone that I've already done a warm handoff.
Right.
I can see what their initiative level is. And then I can see how that mentor re-engages with them. And that's just something for me. There's so many dynamics to this that it is much like watching sports. You can see things unfold and a play happen.
Yes.
And you can recognize, is the culture working or is it not? And then you can call an audible. Okay, this isn't working. Let's go do this. Let's set, maybe that's not working for them to do it on their own. I'm going to set a standard time for them. I'm going to join the first couple of meetings, and then I'm going to let go once they're rolling. I think it's the new modern day leadership. This modern leader is going to figure out how to pull out the best, and how do you leverage your team. And we call it collaboration over competition. Yeah. We're highly competitive, but I believe our team collaborating, we're unstoppable, because the amount of ideas and energy that's created, and you can learn from each other. It's a superpower that most don't tap into.
Yeah. A nice environment to be around too, right, Brian? Like it's you walk into the room and you can feel the positive energy, man.
Yeah. Well, people are winning. And look, if you or I are having a bad day, we call each other. Chances are we're probably not both having a bad day or a bad moment at the same time. So I call you and I go, Audley, here's what's going on, whatever. You're like, man, cool, I'm listening. Here's what's going on in my world. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Well, I can win because we're a team, right? It doesn't have to be just about me. I can feel a little bit of that energy and that dopamine hit. Like, okay, Audley's winning. We're winning. Okay, this is good. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. There's just something to that where I don't think the human psyche, people have tapped into that to realize that being part of a team and that belonging, you can pull energy from each other when you need it and help each other.
Yeah. And oftentimes an underrated benefit of teamwork, right? That ability, like we focus so much on, we can do this for one another because we'll make a conscious effort. So, Brian, I'm going to help you because you need help, versus let me share my experience or share my energy or share my story. And that could very well give you exactly what you need to get you over the hump, right?
Never know. We always say, I think it was a video years ago, Chick-fil-A had it, and it was talking about, I don't know if you saw this one, but it was basically talking about everybody's story, and it had everybody going through and checking out, and they had the little bubble above their head, and you didn't know that maybe they just lost a family member, or they lost their job, and you're like, you don't know what somebody's going through.
Yep.
And they may be on the other side of that to be able to give you perspective and insight to say, hey man, I was there. Let me help you through that.
Yep.
This is what I did.
Yep.
And I don't know, you don't get tighter. I say if the team's always winning and you don't face some adversity and conflict, you're probably not growing as a team. Like adversity and conflict, that's how you get better. That's how the team bonds. And look, from there, it's tough to beat. It's tough to beat that culture.
I'm such a big fan of just sharing stories in general, because there's so much that can come from that. As you just sort of gave you the example of not knowing what someone has gone through or what they're currently going through, how you can, the manner in which you can impact other people so simply. Like it doesn't take a whole lot of effort. It's just, maybe a little vulnerability, just kind of being open, if you will. But, if you look at the benefits, they're huge.
Huge.
Yeah, incredible. So I also want to talk to you about your podcast, right? Because let me show you're a finance guy, right? This is your professional background. So help me sort of understand the transition from the professional finance world into a non-finance podcast.
Oh yeah. So I will say it did not come without some hurdles, some people saying, what are you doing? Like what? You're a mortgage finance, like wealth advisor guy. Like
I could see it, right? Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, here's the deal. I think there's a gap in leadership. I think there's a gap in our industry of this modern mortgage leader that, look, if I want to teach people about mortgages and that kind of stuff, we can do that. There's I believe, plenty of content out there that was there. And I wanted to stand out And I recognize the shift happening in our industry. And I still go back to, I believe people do business with people that they know, they like, and they trust. Right. And so that belief led me to, I need to build my personal brand, because a big part of my role now is building out teams across 8, 9 states.
Okay.
The only way to attract people in my mind was I can call them, I can cold call, I can keep calling, I can fly into markets, I can go meet people. But what if there was another way that I could actually scale that out, and I could be in front of hundreds and maybe thousands of people on a regular basis, and they could get to know me and decide, do I like Brian? Do I not like Brian? Do I want to be on his team? Do I not want to be on his team? Do I want to learn more? Do I not want to learn more? And I think the old days of just pounding the phone, calling 100 people, trying to cold call, trying to get them interested. One, people don't respond to that well. Right. Two, you kind of create this false, in my mind, engagement, because everybody's putting their best foot forward, right? I mean, they're interviewing, they're telling you how awesome they are. You're the recruiter and you're telling them how wonderful your company is. And you've already established a relationship that's not really built on truth, in my mind. I said, well, what if I go and create this podcast that I bring on amazing people? I get to share some of my cultural beliefs, leadership beliefs, share some of the struggles, the hurdles and the things that we're going through. But I bring on people that I've had a chance to meet and collaborate and connect with. And we just have conversations. We just talk about things that are going on. And a lot of them are athletes, leaders, coaches, people that have done some really cool things. That what I recognized was, if I
sorry, but it's not necessarily finance what we're talking about, right? That's the key. I think it's an important point in that.
Not at all. So I would say maybe 1 or 2 out of 10. I will be very intentional about who I bring on, and bring someone from the housing, finance, something really like more in my lane, so to speak, which people love those, right? Like, those are great. But I don't think that's the only thing that I'm called to do. And so I said, I'm going to do something totally different, man. I'm going to shake the world up. I'm going to do this and go build my brand over here. And let me just tell you that on the other side of it is, we've had our best consecutive growth years, year after year after year. We went from 250 million a year in mortgages when I started 4 years ago. We'll do over 2.5 billion this year. And just this year alone, we've recruited 8 producing leaders, which for us, 8 is like, you hit the jackpot. If you recruited 2 to 4 high quality, man, you're doing awesome. And oh, by the way, think about this. When we went into COVID, people couldn't travel and see each other. Well, business didn't stop. Our company leaders, our CEO didn't say, hey, Brian, you get a pass, man. You're off the hook. Nobody did that. So thank goodness that there was a strategy. And this is where I share with people is, you got to get uncomfortable. And doing the podcast was very uncomfortable. I've listened to my first few episodes. And I'm like, wow.
Who is that guy?
Who's that guy? Yeah. What was I doing? What was I thinking? But you know what? Everybody starts somewhere. And I would tell you the lessons that you learn, and you've probably seen this too, is like, I've gotten better at communicating, better at listening. I've gotten some great guests on there. Well, my audience grew. So more people were listening. And guess what? Referrals just happened as a byproduct. I didn't have to ask.
Right.
And then in the end, I really feel like I'm filling this void in our industry of, there's a lot of people that are great at talking about mortgage financing and why you should buy a home, a second home, investment property, how to buy, all that. That's cool. Like, I'm gonna let them dominate that space, because this is my wheelhouse. And I don't think anybody does it better than I do, in the sense of bringing together great people, great ideas, and then saying, okay, here's how we've all stumbled, but here's how we're all winning today. And I'm putting it all out there for free.
I like the whole idea of just taking action, Brian. I really, really do. You know, and I think that's a roadblock for a lot of people. We think of great ideas. We pick up some great books. We listen to some fantastic podcasts, and that's where it stops. Right? It's the actionable steps. Okay, so I've heard what I've heard. I saw what I saw. I read what I read. What comes next? And the fact that you were to do that outside of your comfort zone, outside of your comfort space, that's to be applauded, because that's not the norm.
No, it's not easy. And I set out to, and you know this today, people validate, right? They look on social and they see, you know, what's going on there, what you put on there, the followers, all that stuff. They look to see, typically, to be an authority figure, you need a book, you need a podcast, you need those things. And I said, well, why wouldn't I do it? I mean, like, what's the worst that happens? I launch a podcast, it doesn't go great. I get better at it over time. Like, so what? You know, launch a book, maybe it goes well, maybe it doesn't go well, but whatever. Like, you know how many people have not even tried to do what you and I are doing in this, and go, for all the people that laughed, or it's, oh man, why are you doing that? It's like, man, on the other side of that, there's personal growth that you can't quantify in life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
So quick story. I started, I mean, I podcast for many, many years. And I think my very first time I podcast, like 2007, 2008. And, I was about basketball and so it was my lane, right? So I was really excited about that. And I sort of went away from that and got, life pulls you in all sorts of different directions. And I answered the calling, as I think we should. And I to this day I work with a professional basketball league. Well, when COVID starts, professional league sports, we shut down, obviously, and this was March of 2020, like everyone else, right? We all know March of 2020, and I found myself, I had this gap. I had this I felt uneasy at times. I felt restless. Maybe even mild depression, if you were. I was like, there's something missing, and it took me a while to figure that out. First off, but then I landed. Well, what else can I do? Oh, well, I podcasted before. Let me go back to what I'm familiar with. But then it became, well, what is it that I want to talk about? And the whole idea, the whole concept of audaciousness really came around of me doing some analyzation of my own life, going, what's been important to me? What's been an important skill that has benefited me? Because in every sort of major accomplishment I've had, that has been sort of a key element. I took a risk. I was bold enough. I demonstrated some level of courage to go and do what needed to be done. And at the time, so, December of 2020 is when I launched, and didn't really have a specific what it will be or what it'll look like or how long it'll go, but I just knew it was something that had to be done. And so to your point, on the other side of the other side of this, finally getting the richness, the learnings, the lessons, I'm a big connector, so I'm being able to connect. Now I'm talking to Brian, so now we've got this relationship. So all of these things have come out, things I never saw coming, but wouldn't have happened, going back to the point earlier, if that first step hadn't been taken.
Dude, how true. And so many people, I think they sit on ideas. And if you're one of those people today, I would tell you, you just got to take one step.
Yeah.
And breaking down the podcast. I remember reaching out to someone. I was like, hey, I want to start a podcast. I have no idea where to start. I've Googled it. I've looked it up. And it was funny, started with no equipment, no idea what I was doing and all that stuff. We just started it. And you get better. So the people you usually see, and they're doing it well, they have spent some time there. They didn't get there overnight. They didn't land there by accident.
That's right.
Yeah. Kudos to you, because I think people sometimes they'll shy away from their gifts. And your point, I was like, a lot of people probably experienced that in 2020 of different forms of depression and trying to figure out what is happening as the world was changing so quickly. And if you don't lean in and do something, I think we're all made to connect, and God's given you unique gifts and talents that, man, if you're not using them, you're going to have that void, and you're going to wonder what it is. And it's go take action. You will find your why and your purpose by taking more action, not sitting on your couch and going, oh, I hope it comes to me today. It's not. Get out there.
Absolutely. I think the podcast, a good transition, a point I also want to raise about the fact that everyone has a story, right? Every single person that we encounter, that we meet, that we read about, that we hear about, that we see scrolling through our social media feeds, they have some sort of story. And so when you relate that to the podcast, I think what podcasts allow is to bring those stories out. I wonder if you sort of talk about some of the stories that you've come across that have been just impactful or beneficial in some way.
Oh man. So I had a mentor kind of help me through this. That was interesting. Too often in our jobs, we think about just this almost linear thought process of, I'm in finance, so why would I do a podcast? I'm in finance. Why would I go do a book?
Right.
I'm in finance. Why would I go learn about leadership? All these things that we've told ourselves. The unlearning of things has been so impactful for me from different people that have joined the show, because you hear different vantage points. You hear what they've overcome. You hear how they got from point A to point B with a lot of detours along the way. And I think what you'll see is we're a lot more alike than we are different. And unfortunately, I will just say the media has done such a horrific job of trying to divide. That one thing that the podcast for me really stood for was, we're going to bring unity to this. I don't care where you came from, where you're at right now. Let's figure out what it is that you're doing or have done that can help other people. And it's back to the stories. So I would say, I had a couple folks join. I mean, everything from overcoming brain tumors to people that were on the Shark Tank, to some of our guests that were foster children. Some are first generation immigrants that have come over, and you hear these stories and you're like, man, there's so much diversity to their story, but yet they all had this common thread of they've taken accountability and ownership of their life.
Right.
They've figured out that what things can be are better than what they are today. And they want to make this bigger difference. And let's say one of them that left me with this idea, and I'll say David Meltzer. And it was just kind of one of those where I left and I was like, man, that guy, there's just something about him. And he talked about happiness and choosing to be happy. And that really stuck with me, because when I'm with my kids or I'm sharing something, I think we can all find happiness each day. And while things may be happening outside of us and outside our control, the reality is, and if we all chose to be happy and to try to make someone else happy each day, how much better would the world be? And that inspired me. Is like, slow down, build these connections, share what's going on. You never know who you're going to help. And I'm often reminded that usually when I'm like, why am I posting on social media? Why am I doing all this? Why am I doing a podcast there? Somebody will drop a note and they're like, hey man, I listened to that episode. That was incredible. That touched me. I can relate to that. That's me. Or, you know what? You gave me an idea that I'm going to go take action on. I'm like, hell yeah. Like that. Yeah. Nothing better than that. I want to leave the world a better place. Cause look, the news is we're all going to die. Right? I mean, I hate to spoil the ending of this, but when we do, I hope that I've made a difference. Number one, in my family and my immediate friends and circle, but outside of that, man, I don't want to look back and have any regrets of like, I was given all of this information and skills and talents, and I just hoarded it all. No, like I'm just gonna give it away. Yeah, hopefully it helps some people.
Yeah, no, for me, the impact, right? The kind of impact that we can have on others. And I mean, even now, we're having this conversation, and the idea that someone possibly could take something that we're talking about and use it and make a difference in their world. Because gotta remember too, when we're all connected to something, right? So not only you're making a difference in your world, it's your family, your friend, anything in your sphere of influence is all impacted. So that to me has always just been exhilarating, because this is just a simple chat, Brian. We're not, if you're in the grand scheme of things, you and I aren't doing anything super special outside of sharing and exchanging ideas. And if that's enough to make a difference for someone, man, that's a big deal.
All in, right?
Big deal. Big deal. From your podcast, the only thing that makes sense to talk about your book, because your book Conversations with Covey was sort of built on guests and stories and things that you just talked about. Stories you talked about. Everyone has like a story to share. What made you take that direction? Because you've got a lot of great stories out there through the podcast. This is just I guess I'm gonna say repurpose or repackage, if you will. Is that fair to say?
In some ways, yes. And here's what I realized is talking to people is not everybody listens to podcasts and audios. I mean, let's just be real, right? Even though there's so many people that do, and it's climbing. Some people still like to hold a book in their hand. They like to read chapters. And I wanted to create something that I felt like these conversations that I had, we took the ones that had the most comments, engagement, that really we had the most feedback of, wow, this really helped me. This changed my life. This was something that inspired me. I said, well, what if we put that in just a different format and we condensed it down? So it's like little mini TED Talks, and you could listen to these speakers, but you would read what was there. And we gave you not only hope and inspiration of their backstory, so you may relate to it and go, that's me. I've gone through that. Or that's my parents. That's my kids, whatever it is. And then we actually gave you actionable items. And if you were to have enough money and enough ability to connect with all these people, you would have access to all this. But the reality is it would cost you several hundreds of thousands of dollars probably to get all these people together. Sure. And to get that information. And what would be their one or two life lessons that they were able to share and convey with you? And I thought, wow, this would be such a nice gift. So it turned out to be amazing. I would say I didn't see this coming, but a lot of sales organizations and some friends of mine really supported it. And they would buy several hundred copies and they would give them out to their sales team and their group, their operations team. And what's cool about it is you could read one chapter, 5 chapters, all 11 chapters, whatever you wanted to do. And it was also, this was so fascinating to me. I'm seeing this now play out, is the relationships formed there. And I think this is something I've honed in over the years, is there's now business deals and relationships that came as a result of those are the people in the book, and they're doing things together, which is what just, man, that is powerful. Of now you start multiplying that out and saying 2 or 3 people that are in the book, they start collaborating. What could they do together? And that, that's something I sit back and go, didn't see that coming, but had I waited on the idea, not taken action on the idea, it'd just be another idea, right? That everybody talks about, over the football game or over a beer at the bar. Like, man, I want to write a book. No, I'm not going to be one of those people. I'm going to go do it. And so proud of where it is. We're actually working on my second book, which will be very different than that. Nice. And yeah, really excited when I can start to share some more. I'm working with a team and a publishing company. This is one that's near and dear to my heart. And it's around, I'll just give you a little insight around change and how in life, there's always a changing current in our life, and how do we control that? And there's some things within it. I think the world needs now some of those stories and some of those tactics to help them deal with so much change right now, that we can control some, and there's still a lot we don't.
So I know you probably didn't see yourself being a podcaster. Do you see yourself being an author?
No, not at all. Like, I laughed. Somebody goes, "Man, you got to slow down." I was like, I don't have that gear. I don't think that way, because I think as I get to this point, I turned 44 this year, and I think about, like, what advice does everybody, you see this all the time. What advice would I give the 34-year-old Brian? Is try more stuff, do more things, right? Like, so I don't want to look up at 54 or 64 and go, man, I really wish I had done that. Like, let's go do it.
Yeah.
And I've yet to find, this is the one challenge a mentor of mine gave me years ago, is I've yet to find an investment that I made in myself, whether it was writing the book, doing the podcast, hiring a coach, all these things, that on the other side of it, I haven't gotten better, more fulfillment, happier, or actually made more money, right? I mean, like, that is a byproduct of when you get better, people are willing to pay you more.
Right.
Okay. Like, that's not bad either.
Yeah. The answer's right there. The answer's there. Take the action and invest in yourself and do what you got to do. Because I think, so I hear the term, winning at the game of life, right? I think those are the sorts of things that we've got to do to win. I've heard you sort of define yourself as a disruptor. I wonder if you could explain that, because I think I think you can offer a real good perspective on that.
Yeah. So I grew up in corporate America, first 13 years, and you dress the part, right? I mean, you're suit and tie, you're going into meetings, and it's much more about, you had to conform. It's, you speak a certain way, you act a certain way, you dress a certain way, and like, everything's done this way, and this is how we've done it, and we're going to do it that way. And I started having this urge, and I'm like, man, I'm not that guy. Like, I don't fit into some of these meetings.
Right.
Part of why, when I got fired years ago from the company I was at, and a mentor of mine is like, I will speak my mind. I am a bit of a disruptor in the sense of, I like new ideas. I like to challenge thought processes. I like to see, like, is that the right way we need to do it? What are the other ways? And I think a disruptor today is someone that we often think of. It's somebody that maybe is going to be aggressively or, in a negative way disrupting the world. And I look at it very opposite. It's somebody that's positively disrupting. They're open to new ideas. They're open to collaboration over competition, and they're willing to do things that other people are not willing to do. And I look at that almost back to my sports days. I was a disruptor when I was a goalkeeper, and I was probably one of 2 or 3 that was the only ones under 6 feet.
Right.
And I figured out, I'm going to disrupt the game. I'm going to play it differently. I'm going to play off my line further. I'm going to play with my feet really well. I'm going to work on timing for crosses to make sure we dominate that. And we disrupted the way that the flow of soccer was done with our team. Well, the same's true in business today. Is I wanted to build a culture that was uniquely positioned to bring out the best in everybody, and quit beating people down. Quit doing the old, strategies of, I'm just going to micromanage, and I'm going to be so hard on, I'm going to stack rank everybody. Look, those don't work anymore. And the people that are leading that way, I'll just tell you, your team, whether they tell you or not, they feel suppressed. They feel like they don't have a voice, and they don't feel like they actually belong to a team. They just show up for a paycheck.
Right.
And they probably are on the verge of quitting. If you read statistics today, like Gallup, anywhere else on LinkedIn, all these people are very much not connected. And so I was like, what if we disrupt culture? We don't care what you wear. I wear a t-shirt, and we're not going to judge you based on that.
Right.
We're more focused on our actual performance and how we treat other people. And I think that's going to breed this culture that allows us to be competitive, but we don't look like, talk like, act like,
do your thing.
Like, we're going to do it our way. And I've said from day one, we're going to say no to a lot of things, because we're going to say yes to the best things. And some people are going to make fun of us. They're going to say that we're crazy. They're going to laugh at us. And guess what? We're the ones, I don't want to say we're laughing because we're so focused, but we've always been the underdog. And I'm like, man, a true disruptor today is someone that is willing to take risks. They're willing to take on the criticism and the hatred and the things that are going to come at you. And they're willing to do things differently, knowing they may not figure it out the first time, but if you stay the course and you have the right intentions, you're going to win.
Got you. Absolutely. Those are the individuals who I define as being audacious, right? That's what they are, and those are the individuals that go after it. And again, the foundation of what we talk about in the conversations that we have here are very much around and centered around that. What is it that I can do today to be my best version of myself or my most audacious self? What is it that I could do today? So I think it's only fitting that I ask you, Brian, before we close out here, what makes you audacious? What about you is so audacious?
Oh man, I come from Memphis, Tennessee. I don't have the best past in the world. I've had my fair share of trouble. But what I will say is what makes me audacious is I never give up. I've got a true grit about me that when people are around me, I try to make them feel that energy of I care about them, that they're valued. And I'm okay just to live out my purpose every day and be judged or whatever people may say about it, but I'm going to do me. And hopefully that will inspire other people to be yourself, show up as yourself. And that might be audacious, right? It might be the way we talk, the way we dress, the way we show up every day. But what I've realized is you only get one life and I'm going to live it to the fullest. And I'm not worried about what people think or how they may say I should do it differently. I'm going to be me.
Yeah. And how much fun is that, Brian? I mean, at the end of it all, this, we talk about, this pursuit of this life that we're after. And sometimes we get so focused on the end goal, but that process, it's a ton of fun, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, when you commit to yourself, and I share this with people all the time, a mentor of mine shared this with me, is you can't pour out of an empty cup, right? So whether you're a coffee drinker, you drink something else, you think about if that cup was empty and you went to drink out of it and there was nothing in it, you'd be disappointed, right? Like there'd be nothing for you.
Right.
Well, think of the opposite. What if that cup was full of your favorite drink, your favorite coffee, whatever it is? Oh man, this tastes great. Well, in life, if you don't put yourself first in the scenario of investing in yourself, taking care of yourself mentally and physically, your spouse, your family, your friends, your teammates, you got nothing to pour out into them.
Yeah.
So if you do not prioritize yourself and what matters and invest in yourself, you're going to look up and you're going to have an empty cup. That is a lonely, depressed place that is hard to contribute to other people. So make sure you pour into your cup every day. Surround yourself with people that are going to add to your cup and not take away from your cup and make you feel like, wow, I'm really thirsty and I got nothing to drink out of that cup today. Right.
Got you. Listen, I think that's a great point to wrap up on in terms of, how we talked earlier about the impact, right? I think that's just another way we have the ability to impact people just through our actions and just oftentimes just us being who we're supposed to be. And I think you put it perfectly. So thanks for that, Brian. I really appreciate it. Listen, this has been such a great chat. I'm so glad that we were able to sit down and do this, and thank you for taking the time. For our listeners that wanted to sort of connect with you or learn more about you, hear your podcast, check out your book. Where can we send them?
Yeah, best place is just go to my website. It's www.briancovey.com. And I'm on Instagram. Somebody took Brian Covey, so I had to do the Brian Covey.
Got you.
Funny enough, I got hacked this morning. People were sending me notes like, somebody took your account. I was like, I guess that's when you have a good account. Somebody.
That's right. How often do people connect you with Stephen Covey? I guess that happens a fair amount.
A lot, yeah, which is great because I grew up with the 7 Habits and the 8th Habit and all that. So very, very much a fan and a student of Covey's work. Yeah.
There you go. Well, listen, Brian, I appreciate this. Thank you for again for being here on the podcast, and keep up the good stuff, man. And listen, when that book comes out, I'd love to sit down and chat with you again about it. I think it'd be a great time.
Yeah, I'd love to do it. Ollie, thank you so much. Keep smiling, making the world a better place. Love what you're doing.
Thank you, my friend. Be well. All the best.
Okay. Take care.
Back we are here on the Audacious Living Podcast. It was so mad cool for Brian to be here and to share his thoughts with me. So again, Brian, I appreciate you so much. As a former soccer player, he had some really good analogies in the sports world. And I think the correlation between sports and life, it's so strong, and the lessons are very relevant. So again, thank you, Brian, for being here, and I appreciate you taking the time. Brian left us with so much to think about. And if I were to reflect and take one thing from my conversation with him, it would be this. The game of life can often be difficult, where there'll be unexpected circumstances and challenges that are even periods of frustration that will arise that we're going to have to deal with. You may even go through periods where you struggle with self-doubt, feel overwhelmed, or maybe helplessness or some sense of loss. At the same time, while all these things potentially can go on, life can be an extremely beautiful thing. And the formula needed to be successful starts with you. It actually begins with you as well. Ultimately, being a winner in this beautiful space starts with an understanding that life is a collection of experiences, both good and bad. And the most successful people learn how to grow as an individual while creating healthy, happy relationships along the way. Again, the starting point lies with you. If you haven't registered for email notifications of the podcast, please know that you can do so simply by heading over to bestaudaciouslife.com, enter in your email address, and you will be immediately connected. It's just that easy. Also, if you are listening on your favorite podcasting platform, we always encourage comments and likes, and by all means, we encourage you to do that because that helps the podcast grow and it helps to gain more traction. So we'd love to, if you'd really appreciate it, if you could do that as well. We've come to the end of another edition of the Audacious Living Podcast. And as always, I want to send a big shout out to our awesome listeners. The support and the ongoing support that you get has been tremendous, has been appreciative. And I'm so grateful that all of you are supporting this podcast in the way that you do. I would only ask that you continue to keep doing so. And again, I thank you in advance and thank you for what you've done. It's been absolutely great and a wonderful ride. And I appreciate you all for that. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.